Welcome to the Vault Podcast, classic music reviews, presented by IV Creative. Now, here's your hosts, B. Cox and the crew.
Greetings and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Vault Podcast, classic music reviews, presented by IV Creative. It's a perspective on the classics from a fresh point of view. We appreciate you for taking your time and lending your ears to our perspective. You could be anywhere listening to anything, but you're right here with us, so we thank you. With you today is yours truly, and with me today, surprise, surprise, the crew is back together again. I'm talking about my one and only crew, comprised of these fine gentlemen joining me over the interwebs. They're not here physically, but I'm going to go ahead and run them down. You know them well. My boy DT Dave. My boy Cousin Damo, host of the Raw Sex Podcast every week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, pick a day when it comes out. And of course, our boy J.O. Gentlemen, it is a pleasure to be back with all of you today. What is going on?
Yeah, you know what it is, man.
Another day, glad to be back.
Yeah.
You know, it's cold edition, but we in there.
Yeah, yo, man, yo, let me tell you something, man. I'm glad to have y'all back on here with me. It's awesome, man. I think it's been probably since last year, since all of us were together doing an episode, to tell you the truth, man. Things got crazy at the end of last year.
Before Jason Baby.
Yeah, I know. So,
Right.
Things have been happening, man. Stuff has been going on behind the scenes. You know, we had everything from the end of this year, stuff changing in our personal lives, then also COVID hit, and then everything went to hell. So we had to take a little bit of break, man. Me and Damo have been going strong doing Raw Sex ever since he up and went on assignment off the grid. So we still doing Raw Sex. Things have still been happening there. Me and Jay did a few episodes earlier this year. I think we did Poison Jay, and then also I think we also did it was Tupac, Me Against the World, and Black Rob. But ever since then, man, I've been flying solo. So I'm so glad to have y'all back. I know the listeners are going to be glad to have y'all back. So let's get this thing kicked off, man. I'm glad to have y'all, man. Once again, we want to make sure that we tell y'all, continue to support the Vault and all the platforms out there. As we always say here on the Vault Classic Music Reviews, hashtag nothing but the classics, hashtag open the vault, or hashtag MBTC. We like to get into this right now. We have a great album lined up for you right now. An all-timer, a pure classic here with Slum Village out of Detroit and their second studio album, Fantastic Volume 2. 20 years ago today, gentlemen. So, released on June 13th, 2000, Slum Village, the rap trio, consisting none other of T3, Bot10, and the late, great, legendary James David Yancey, a.k.a. JD, a.k.a. J Dilla, who comprised this album. May he rest in peace. Absolutely. So we have this album that has come out, released and recorded mostly between 1997 and 98. Came out on Good Vibe Records, produced by JD. All the tracks on here were produced by JD, by Dilla, but there were also contributions on here by Pete Rock and also D'Angelo. This was the second album that they had. Fantastic Volume Number 1 came out in 1998 on A&M Records, and then the label itself actually shut down. They didn't have a deal done, but during this time is when JD actually worked with a few artists. He worked with Common, Busta Rhymes, Erykah Badu, Tribe Called Quest. Dilla famously was a big part of the Common classic album Like Water for Chocolate, which was released earlier this year in March. And Common also did a guest appearance by way of the track Thelonious, which also was on Like Water for Chocolate. Dilla was a big part of those Soulquarian recording sessions that were done at the Electric Lady Studio, which helped shape Like Water for Chocolate, Voodoo by D'Angelo, and then also Erykah Badu's Mama's Gun. So this was their second studio album, and at this point, people were starting to check for them. So June 13th, 2000, 20 years ago from Slum Village. And guys, it's a little interesting me watching all of the respectives that came out. It was actually, as of yesterday, was their 20th anniversary of the releasing of this album. And just to see the people reminiscing about this album and the things that it did and the feeling that it gave them kind of brought back a lot of memories to me. So we're going to go ahead and get right into the album. Just talk about where we were and the things that you thought about it when you first heard it. So I'm actually going to go to Dave because I know Dave is an SV enthusiast and he loves Dilla just about as much as I do, if not more. So I'll go to Dave, man. Just your initial reaction when you first heard the album. What's your thoughts about it, listening to it back then and even now going into the reviewing of it this week?
I stumbled upon this joint. I was at the Hagerstown outlets way back in the day. And we was at a music store. And so I'm walking around. I'm looking for albums and stuff that I haven't heard before. And I see this one CD called Slum Village Fantastic Volume 2. And I'm like, let me... And I'm looking through the track list, and then I see Thelonious on there with Common. And I was like, oh, this was on Like Water for Chocolate. I better check this out. Man, I got home and I put my headphones on and put that thing on blast. And I had it on repeat for almost a week. Going through it and listening to it again, it just brought back so many memories. Just literally sitting in my room with my headphones on. And I'm just like, man, it was like one of the best albums that I think I heard that year. And it's also in my top 25 of all time. So it's a really, really special album. Really special.
Indeed. Jay, I'll ask the same thing to you about, what your impressions was when you first heard it and then listening to it this week, what you thought as well.
I know it came out like June 2000, but actually I didn't I should say I didn't hear it till like much later. But it was funny because by this time I was at Morgan, and I don't know if you remember, Brian, but do you remember when Aaron Magruder came up to the school and spoke?
I do. I remember that when he came up. Yeah, from
so
Boondocks, the creator of the Boondocks.
Right, yeah. So basically, after that, he did he did an interview with the spokesman, the school paper in Morgan.
I remember that.
He was talking about how underground hip hop gets overlooked, and it's all about commercial hip hop. He said I love Slum Village, and most people have never heard of Slum Village, so I kind of took it upon myself to check it out. Didn't actually get a chance to copy it, but heard it and passed with other people that I knew had it, and it was definitely refreshing to listen to because I think in 2000, you got to remember around that time it was it's more so about Cash Money and Rough Riders, or it was about the Raucous movement. I feel like that was kind of in between because they had they had lyrics, but it was still about just partying, getting the ass, but in a more polished way, I could say, as far as how they delivered it. Yeah. Basically that was my vibe of them back then, especially with all the lyricism, definitely, Jay Dilla's production, which I just say definitely should give more respect than what it does. I know us in this circle, we all know about Jay Dilla's production, but it just, to me, it doesn't get the same recognition, say RZA, Primo, or Kanye or somebody like that. But, especially I really get that feeling listening to it now. It just really shows that his production stood the test of time. And then you just think about, all of what they offered as far as, lyricism, and even with the Detroit hip hop scene too, because you got to think back in 2000. Yeah. It was more so about people just thinking about Eminem and maybe Royce da 5'9", but it just offered that sound as well. And I don't really think people give them enough credit for that sound too. So yeah, definitely some heavyweight contenders in the game of hip hop overall.
It's interesting you mentioned that because the Detroit hip hop scene right around that time, turn of the century, right into the new millennium, was popping. You talked about Eminem. He had come out with the Slim Shady LP, the Marshall Mathers LP. People were just starting to find out about D12. People were just starting to find out about Royce da 5'9". And then you have Dilla and the whole Slum Village clique, which then brought to light not only just them, but then a future Slum Village member in Elzai and a future Slum Village affiliate in Black Milk. So you had a lot of different things that came out of here. The Detroit hip hop scene was popping at that time. Within those years, like 99 to 2002, 2003, you had the Eminem show come out. You had the 8 Mile thing come out. D12 came out with an album. People started to expand into Dilla. And I think this was the album really that got Dilla out there in the stratosphere. Like, people knew about him in the industry, but they had never heard a Dilla produced album until this album. And that's when I think everybody sort of opened up. It's like, whoa, this dude did a whole album of 20 tracks of just some bangers, like flawlessly produced. So definitely thanks for mentioning that, Jay. So Damo, I'll go to you. Just your reactions when the first time you heard this album and what you think about it now after listening to it this past week.
Y'all mofos, Brian and David left me at Bowie High School, so I was still there. And it was the end of school year, of course, June. So, of course, our favorite buddy, PJ, this is his vibe right here. So, he was like, oh, did you get that Slum Village? I was like, no. Let's listen to this. Listen to it. I was like, all right. Yeah, okay, I'll check it out. Let me see your CD, and I'll bring it back. You got it. Let me see it. Let me go home and y'all new kids don't know about burning the CD. Let me burn this jam. I'll burn it to you and bring it back tomorrow. So, I burned the jam, listen to it, right? Like, okay, I said, all right, I see what, of course, understatement what you say with Dave and Jay Dilla, because every time I talk to Dave talking about Jay Dilla.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
Yep.
yeah, back then, it was top. I listened to it, refreshed it this week. I don't know, this day, listen to it again, we're going to wait till we get there. Like be on the island by myself.
True. Indeed. Nah, man, I hear you. Well, I mean, this came out about a week after me and Dave graduated, so I definitely understand that. That's one thing I kind of wish I would have been back at the lunch table for. I wish I would have been back at the lunch table to discuss that with P and Chris and Jamal and the rest of the crew that was there that used to listen to and dissect hip hop albums back in the day. But my reaction when listening to it, when I first heard it, I was put onto it right when I was going into school. And I had known JD and known Dilla's work, but I really wasn't familiar with Slum Village until I listened to Thelonious. And of course, that was one of the standout tracks on like Water for Chocolate. But listening to it, I was just listening like, damn, man, like why this track? It almost feels like this production on this is like a mix of what you get from A Tribe Called Quest to what you get with Pete Rock. It was almost like that's what Dilla was doing. And Dilla, famously a part of the UMA, which was the production trio of Q-Tip, Ali Shaheed Muhammad, and Jay Dilla. He worked on Beats, Rhymes, and Life and the Love Movement. And then we all know what Pete Rock's influence on Jay Dilla was in producing. I mean, Dilla pretty much took and patterned his production style largely off of Pete Rock. And he even is a guest spot and also has a guest production spot here on one of the tracks on this album. So it was interesting to sort of listen to it, but I was feeling it. I wasn't really familiar with Batan and T3, but, listening to this, I got a little bit more familiar with them. And listening to it coming up this week, I was really struck just again, every time I listen to this album by what the production sounds like. And the production to me is a standout because it's Dilla. But then I think that his production sort of elevates the level of the album because it feels as though while you're not going to get, you're going to get solid MCing. It's not going to be exceptional. It's not going to be out of this world, but it's almost like it literally is like a hand in a glove. It fits basically to the style of what the rest of the group of Slum Village was doing. It really was the soundtrack to what their rhymes were. And that's what I think to me is elevates this album to another level, is that it took about above average MCing and made it seem excellent. So that's the way best way I can sort of put it when listening to this. But the guest spots on here, Q-Tip on Hold Tight, Tell Me by D'Angelo, which is a smooth ass track. What's It All About by Busta Rhymes, Forth and Back with Corrupt. And then there's also Once Upon a Time, which was featured Pete Rock, which he co-produced. And then Thelonious by Common, which also showed up on like Water for Chocolate. So those are my thoughts on there.
You gotta mention I Don't Know, man, with Jazzy Jeff scratching. Man.
I don't, you know what? Right good catch right there. See, and this is the reason why I love having y'all back, because I would have missed that if I was recording that myself. I Don't Know by Jazzy Jeff. Yes, who, by the way, when we talk about DJs, when it comes to stuff on the turntables, when it comes to mixing and scratching, I put Jazzy Jeff up against any DJ in the world historically. Like, you could talk Primo, Kid Capri, anybody else, any of the great hip hop DJs out there. When it comes to, they don't call the dude the Magnificent for nothing. He truly is a pioneer on those turntables when it comes to scratching, mixing, and cutting. So we're going to get into it now. We're going to go through highlights, lowlights, and then anything else that you liked as far as your favorite song between then and now. So I'll actually go ahead and I'll start with Jay. So, Jay, what were your highlights, lowlights, and then your favorite track then and now on this Fantastic Volume 2?
I guess I got to say is, I can start with my highlights of the song Climax. I know the alternative type was Girl Shit, but like, that kind of just took me back to, again, like Morgan days, like, just because of how smooth that track was. And just like, the whole album was like just a whole vibe. I don't know, just like the smoothness of that track and the lyricism and the flow and everything, like back then. I still think holds up now. Along with that, I was enjoying the train Jealousy, Because I mean, as you know, we all get older. I mean, we experience people that may not want to see us realize our true potential. So, you know, it's starting to reign more and more supreme as we get older, even now in all our late 30s. I mean, like, you know, and I'm trying to think what else. Connaught Gardens. I'm probably not mispronouncing like the joint. Track number 2, Connaught Gardens. As far as
Connaught Gardens.
Connaught Gardens. Yes, like
Connaught Gardens.
Where they like, you know, repping where they from and everything like that. And I mean, another thing to introduce people to like the Detroit scene as far as like, you know, basically more than just 8 Mile, you know. So I don't think 8 Mile is a big thing at this time, but just giving more to the landscape of Detroit and what they had to offer as far as, you know, talent. I mean, Detroit's always been a musical town, but as far as like specifically hip hop and just everything that's off with that, gotta put this out there. You know, people may disagree, but I really feel like Fourth and Back could have been left on the cutting room floor. That's just my opinion. Just my opinion.
Oh man, it's your boy Corrupt on there, man. It's your boy Corrupt on there, Jay. Damn, you gonna leave it on the cutting floor, man?
Yeah, you know what? Got the West Coast and you gonna go and Corrupt like that?
Yeah.
I mean, even to interjecting me, even to technically remember
straight came from West Coast rap. Oh,
I mean, it's some joints that even like, you know, Corrupt can't make good, or even no, that's a whole other podcast. I ain't gonna say that one, but but like moving on amicably. Let me see. Songs I slept on back then, like Fall in Love, Get This Money, CB4, like, and I found myself like listening to those more and more, like, you know, even as we got ready for this podcast, while I listened to those. So yeah, I have to say those like were the ones that really stood out to me, and like going back to the cutting room floor thing as far as like that track. But other than that, I mean, yeah, that'd be it for me. So
Damo, what's your highlights, lowlights, and favorite tracks then and now?
Well, Hold Tight with Q-Tip. To Tell Me, D'Angelo, those two, even then and now, are still my top 2 that I love. You know, you could say Dilla, but we already heard that before, so I'm gonna agree with Jay. You know, the album is a vibe for real. It ain't, and maybe because, you know, I really never was a big weed smoker, the vibe really wasn't for me. I mean, it's a good vibe. I'm talking about then. But now, you know, you enjoy the vibe being older. Back then, it was like, all right, it's all right, DJ. It's okay. All right. But now, being older, I don't even think vibe was in our vocabulary then.
Nah, it wasn't. Vibe was the magazine. Vibe was the magazine. That's what it was.
That was it. Yeah, that was it. It wasn't a feeling that was going on. Now it's like, oh yeah, that album was a vibe, or whatever. Oh yeah, shorty a vibe. So yeah, the album, that's exactly what Jay said, is exactly what it is. I agree with him on the Corrupt jump. I really thought they could have left Thelonious off this too. I didn't need to hear it again. And then, you know what? I'm kind of getting, in this new day and age, I'm kind of getting spoiled with albums being shorter. So, like, I'm like, damn, this jump still on?
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I guess budgets were bigger back then. Maybe they had bigger budgets back then or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
They did.
The album was like 21 songs?
Yeah, album on this one, 21 songs.
So a Chris Brown album.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
74 minutes and 52 seconds the runtime. So 75 minutes. It's a long album. Even for back then, that's a long
It's
album.
a long album.
It's definitely, like you said, a vibe, and that's what I really can describe it as. So Dave, your highlights, lowlights, and anything else?
Not many lowlights. Of course, I don't know, hit me off the jump, because I'm a Jazzy Jeff guy. Players was my favorite beat on the joint. I could literally listen to that beat all damn day long. Shout out to my boy Gusto, because Get This Money is on his track. I had a good discussion with him about this joint. He was like, yo, when he was going through some things, like Get This Money really motivated him. And like, it was the truth. Go Ladies is my track. Like, I love Go Ladies. Fall in Love, of course. Hold Tight. And when we get to the lyricism, I'm going to tell you about Tell Me with D'Angelo. I'm going to tell you the best verse on this album. But
okay.
Not too many lowlights on this joint. The production, the way everything broke down, it was just a great album.
So with me, my highlights on here And this is the way I sort of look at albums. Like we talk about when albums get on run. So you have the intro, you have Conant Gardens, which is the neighborhood in Detroit where Slum Village, everybody from SV grew up in. But then you sort of get in from track number 3, to me, I guess, all the way you get down into, I would say, Get This Money. The album rolls for me until then. Like you get the whole thing where I Don't Know. That's the track, you know, with Jazzy Jeff doing the scratching. That had a lot of different samples from the James Brown samples. They took, like, I think samples from like 4 or 5 different James Brown's records or recordings. There's Jealousy. And then Climax, man, like that beat is just so smooth. Just that bass line. Like, so Jay, you know, like when we talk about with producers, you talk about stuff like how do you do certain things? So It's like, how do you do that bass line, right? Like, how do I replicate that in my productions? Because that's the type of bass that I'm looking for. And then the hook with the girl singing and the fact that it just adds to the track. You know what I'm saying? And then the beat just sort of just really is just smooth, like really, really smooth. Sort of like you pouring wine out of a bottle into a cup.
And that's what I mean by with Dilla too. Like he's another one that's like when you making beats and stuff like that, it's like, dang, can I be that good? Like,
you're never going right. I'm never going to be this good. Exactly. Yeah. So
I mean, I already said it about Primo. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think I said it about RZA too. But like, I mean, yeah, if I say Dilla, he's another one. That's why I really feel he doesn't get the respect he deserves as a producer.
Indeed. Yeah. But Climax, then Hold Tight with Q-Tip, Tell Me with D'Angelo, which is just another smooth ass track. What's It All About with Busta Rhymes. And then when you get into Forth and Back, I do have to agree with y'all. I do think that is a weak spot right there on the album. I do. But then you get into Untitled.
Why does Corrupt get blamed for that?
Well,
I don't personally blame him for it.
Yeah, I just think it's the track. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's that track in particular. Overall, it's just not to the level where the other ones are for me. Then you get an Untitled, fantastic, Fall in Love, but then Get This Money. And that beat for Get This Money is just ridiculous, man. That vocal sample and then that bass line, like that buzzing bass. Like, I remember, Dave, we had a post on Facebook a while back where people was like, if you wanted to tell someone about J Dilla's productions, what would be a beat that you would let them listen to? The first one. And I think a lot of people said Get This Money, that beat. Yep. You know? And then, to me, I know, Dave, this is your track, but I'm actually not really a big fan of Raise It Up. I'm not.
Raise It Up hyped me, though. You know what? That's a highlight, too. I forgot about that, too. I'm just like, I don't know if it's the fact that it was the wordplay or whatever that just caught my attention off that jam, or maybe it's just the way that the bass, the like, dun, 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 dun. It's just like, it just kind of built. Yeah. And then like, that, it's just like your head just start going back and forth. And the next thing you know, your neck start hurting because you just like bang it so hard. That whole beat, as we call it, like now we're calling it the vibe. Yeah. That beat right there had a vibe.
Now, the funny thing about that actual track of Raise It Up, that song was a sample from Extra Dry by Thomas Bankler of Daft Punk. And it was used without permission. And then Dilla used it and thought it would be fine, you know. But then what happened is that Daft Punk listened to it. They happened to be fans of Slum Village. And rather than them get money for it, they just asked that the group remix one of their own tracks. So then it ended up becoming a remix for Slum Village remix song of the song Aerodynamic. So, yeah, which is an instrumental track by Daft Punk. So they ended up remixing that. That's something, you know, just a fun fact about that particular track there.
That's a rarity because like if you hear somebody like taking music illegally from you, they gonna try to get as much money from you as possible.
Oh yeah.
So the fact that Daft Punk actually understood how dope that Dilla was, and they allowed him to actually use it, and then kind of like a favor for a favor, that was pretty dope.
Yeah, remember Daft Punk, the whole thing between Daft Punk and that and Kanye West Stronger, there was some problems around that when that came out a few years later. So, you know, just to show you the homage that they paid, they know how dope of a producer that Dilla was, and they were fans of the group themselves. But CB4, I love Once Upon a Time by Pete Rock. I think that actually might be one of the better beats to me on this album. And the fact that they collaborated on this is sort of like you get a master and student thing, because you had Pete Rock, who influenced Dilla, and then Dilla, who ended up, in some respects, some people say may have even eclipsed Pete Rock. I'm not one of those people, but some people may think that. You know, some people may think that, but it's definitely a really cool thing to do. I have to agree with you, Dave, about Players. That track, I could literally have that instrumental on repeat. I could have that instrumental on repeat, like most of the damn day. I could sit there, drink to it, watch TV to it, smoke to it, you know, so it's a really cool track. If anybody remembers the video for Climax, at the end of it, that's when they had that's the first time that I heard that instrumental, was that Players instrumental where they were all going to the respective girls' houses, and they ended up knocking on the doors, and they're encountered with somebody who comes to the door to confront them about it. But that's the first time I heard that track. 2U, 4U is another one of mine, Go Ladies. And then the bonus track on the later pressing, which is Who We Are, which is the one that ended this version of the album, is actually another one of my favorite ones. And of course, Thelonious, because I love Thelonious. It was one of my favorite tracks on one of my favorite albums on Like Water for Chocolate. Like I said, to me, I think that Forth and Back is a bit of my only, I guess, if you could say a low light, that's there. And I expected a little bit better, because with Corrupt being on there, you expect things to, you know, you think it's going to be good. But I thought it was just it's a meh track for me. That's what it is for me, at least just for me. So, you know, but there we are. Lots of good stuff here on this album. 21 tracks, like I said, you go through here. A lot of highlights, not really a lot of lowlights. And as we all mentioned, it is really a vibe. So now we're going to get into notable quotables. So we're going to get into some of the verses on here. There are a lot of standouts here between, and surprisingly, I think Dilla has a lot of standout verses on here. I think every one of the members of Slum Village has a standout here, and I think every one of the guest spots on here had a standout verse. Busta, Q-Tip, Pete Rock, Common, of course. That verse by Common is is crazy. But we'll get into notable quotables. So, Dave, you said you had one here you think is the best verse on the album. Well, that was with Tell Me, right?
Yeah.
All right, so what is it? What's your quotable?
T3. It was T3. Hold on a second. And forgive me for this, and I know I'm probably going to get a thumbs down for this, but I use this joint as a pickup line. T3 went, see you sexy girl and also quite confident. You can sell goods and probably market it. Yo, what's up with 7 digits? Can I pocket it? I want to get into your prerogative. I bet you need a lot to get monotonous. Spitting more games than an evangelist. Girl, you know you scandalous. I'm trying to get a one-on-one monogamous. Let's look into it like an analyst. I'm thinking about, can you handle this? Yeah, I'm telling you, like, I literally memorized that whole part of the verse.
You don't get no thumbs down. I done use Nas. Hey, look, I done use Nas joke where he just understand my story.
Bruh, I'm telling you, I listen to this. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm like, you could pick up any girl in this joint. You really listen to this joint, like, damn, like, he really spitting to these chicks. Like, okay, this is dope. So that's my probably favorite verse on this joint.
Yeah, like, and I have to agree with you there. That is a standout. The one thing that I love about Slum Village when they do things is on the girl tracks on here, when they're spitting game, it's real intricate, some of the things that they do. Like, you know, real intricate with the verses that they spit. Even with Dilla at the beginning of the climax, you know, you ain't got to play hard to get. I know you. So it's real intricate. Nah, but that's a good one right there. Jay, what's your notable quotable from this album?
I gotta keep it at T3 on Jealousy.
Okay.
So basically, I mean, the first verse, like, yes, y'all, I love it when you hate. Now let's calculate, take it straight to straight. Take it to your face, so wherever you lay, or you say you fake and won't take shit to your face. See, in the first place, you made a crucial mistake. My crew congregates just to aggravate, with plots to infiltrate and abbreviate. If you think we out, shit, we got rid of for days. Take it to another phase with the extra stage. Have you feeling the blaze of NWA? So just like,
yeah.
I mean,
fire.
Yeah. Nah, T3 got some fire on here, man.
You know what I'm saying? Like, people don't catch, like, the cleverness of, like, using that to take it, plots to infiltrate and abbreviate. So, I mean, like, just going back to some of the, like, the intricate delivery as far as, like, how they pretty much, like, want to drop your numbers in your crew or whatever. So, One at Detroit Fire.
Indeed. Damo, you got a notable quotable for us?
Q-tip, hold tight. Niggas in the game is getting too slimy. Liable to make this peace brother turn grimy. I'ma leave it in the hands of the slum now. Take it away from where it comes from now. A lot of you cats in the mystic business shiftless. I'll put you on the shit list. Did your intuition say to shit on me? I'ma just flip your ears. Yo, you hear me, B? D'Angelo, play your piano. JD, flip another beat for me. Hold tight with baton on my nigga T3. Bust the bus, watch out for who you trust. Ali Shaheed, it's your blood that I bleed. Yes, Fife, for you I'll give my life. It's the shit for real. There's no more light. Like, oh, yeah, my nigga was going.
Yeah, nah.
Going in.
Yeah, Tip did his thing on this, man. And you nigga, you took my verse. That's the verse I was gonna use. See what happens when you give a nigga an inch, they take a mile. That's what happens. They take a fucking mile. Anyway, but that's a good one, because that means what that means is that good minds think alike. That's what that means. That's exactly what that means. But I always have a backup. I have a backup plan. So my backup plan, of course, my notable quotable comes from Thelonious, and it comes from Common. I'm about to let my mind flow. Get your third eye poke. Fuck game. I simple dope. Ness. A nigga that's fresh as the fest. Study this rap shit. Don't need to mic test. You can feel it in your chest. Yo, B, I can feel it in the breast. Plus, you rhyme like a nigga with his nipples pierced. We lick off lyrics in the streets and real niggas hear us. Dreaming when I wrote this shit. Box me if I go too wild. Still doing this shit like Dude and Wild style. Inviting whack niggas to dinner. I trick daddy MCs and I don't know. Nan nigga who could take it where I take it. You better go into God like Mace did. Leaving crowds complacent. I move them a clouds, whether on some surf and turf shit or thug style. You can feel it in your body. Yeah, y'all, you can feel it in your body. Like if a 12-gauge shotty shell hit your body. That verse, you know what I'm saying?
He said, you better go into God like
Mace did.
Man, that ended the whole track. Like, don't hear nothing else. Just like...
Leaving crowds complacent. I move them above clouds, whether on some surf and turf shit or thug style. You can feel it in your body. Gotta love a quotable by Common, man. Gotta love a quotable by Common. But a lot of standout stuff on here. I actually was a fan of Pete Rock's verse on here as well. Definitely was a highlight on Once Upon a Time, which I think is one of the better beats on here as well. Now, just to talk a little bit about the reception this album has gotten. There was an article by Hip Hop Wire that talked about Slum Village Fantastic Volume 2 turning 20. And they talked about a lot of the things as far as the reception for this album. What I was surprised is that they pulled a collage full of all the social media reaction to the album coming out and all the people saying stuff about it. Now, what's interesting is on this article, what you saw was so many people saying things like this was a life-changing album for them, like the album was an experience for them, and that they can't imagine that it took this long. You know, it's been this long since the album came out. And so what you saw was just a list of tweets and Instagram posts of people commemorating the 20th anniversary of Fantastic Volume Number 2. And this album, when it came out, only got 3.5 mics in the source. That's it. Now, at this point, the source's credibility was damn near all but gone, at least for the most part, by the time 2000 rolled around. You know, so, but if you look at really what the heads thought about this album, it was great. And then I think the true test of what you talk about an album is that when you see what people think about it years after it's come out. And one of my favorites on here, shout out to 12 Cal, the 12 Cal podcast, who I did a guest interview with him and feature for a review of Commons Like Water for Chocolate. It was a great interview. He has a great show. He was actually one of the tweets that was featured on Hip Hop Wired. And what his reaction to it was, where they put it on there for him. And shout out to Kyle. I'm shouting you out right here, brother. Just want to let you know. He said, yesterday, Fantastic Volume Number 2 from Slum Village turns 20 today. It was a game changer for me. One of my first exposures to the brilliance of J Dilla. He was and always will forever be phenomenal. A lot of us feel that way because I think what helps to raise the mythology of this album is the fact is that not only is Dilla no longer here, but Batan's not here anymore either. So it really shows that after this, like, Dilla left to become a solo artist. Dilla then collaborated with a lot more people, did J-Lib with Madlib. He also did his album Donuts, which is the classic J Dilla album that he came out with. And then he was gone long too soon, man. 2006, died at 32. And Batan actually died 3 years later. And at that point in time, Slum Village really wasn't, they weren't what they were. So it was sort of like the death of J Dilla helped to propel the group into sort of fading into obscurity, even after Elzai joined them as a member. And even Dilla's brother, Illa J, who became a member of Slum Village as well, it never really was the same after that. So this became their standout album. So now we're going to get into the ultimate test, the test of time to see where this album stands at with the rest of us, man. Guys, we've been through this album. Everyone's listened to it. We talked about the production, talked about the lyrics. So now here's the test to find out where we stand. Is it a certified classic? It is a borderline classic. Is it a classic in just its time, or new listing? Is it not a classic? So I'll go around and I'll get the reactions. I'll go ahead and start with you, Damo. What say you? Certified, borderline, just in its time, or not a classic at all?
I'm going to go with a classic at its time. Listening to it now, too long for me. The vibe, yeah, the production is probably going to always be classic. And like you said, it outshines the lyrics, the production does. So just for me, I ain't going to bomb it. It's a classic for its time.
Okay. Indeed. Jay, what say you, man?
I have to go ahead and say it's a classic. I mean, all things considered, especially my low point, even with that, take that out of the equation. Like, I'm still gonna rock with it. Say it's a classic. I mean, with the lyricism, the way it was put together. I mean, and it's just Dilla. You know what I'm saying? Like, how can you not like? You know what I'm saying, that man's production, what he brought to the table.
Dave, what's your verdict?
Come on, bro. Don't even ask. You already know.
I gotta ask, man.
You already know. It's a classic to me. Like I said, just there's a reason why I hyped it up so much when it came out back then, and the joy that came over me listening to it again 20 years later, it's still there. So it's classic to me.
True indeed. And I have to echo your sentiment. It's a certified classic for me, and the reason saying that it still kind of holds up for me. And the production wise, yes, but then there's also things, as Jay pointed out, the lyricism, while not excellent on the level of the greatest of the greats, to me, it fits the production. And I think it's clever. You know, the lyricism is clever and fits exactly what it was they were trying to do, what Slum Village was trying to do. And when you see what it did afterwards for not just Detroit hip hop, but hip hop overall, this album helped to spur not only careers like Elzhi and Black Milk and other Detroit underground artists, which will become later on in the decade and then also in this century, but you also saw what it did as far as influencing producers from all over. And the people who looked at J Dilla, this was a lot of the first things they looked at to say, I bet that's who I want to make beats like. I want to make beats like that guy right there. And this was the first example to show people of what it did. And then looking at the perspectives that people posted yesterday, I've seen so much positive feedback of people who reminisced about this album 20 years later to be like, damn, man, this shit has been 20 years old already, and this still is one of my favorite joints. I do have to agree with Dave. This is definitely one of my favorite albums from this year, from the year 2000. I sort of almost lumped these two together with Like Water for Chocolate and Fantastic Volume Number 2. If I had to put as far as like my favorite albums from this year, I would have to say this is probably in my top 10, but it may even slip into my top 5 from this year. But we're going to do that at the end of the year. We're going to do all of our rankings for each of the years that we're covering this year. So for 90, 95, and 2000. And I would have to say this might just slip into my top 5. It's close, though. It's definitely in my top 10 for the year 2000, though. So there we are. Fantastic Volume Number 2. Released June 13, 2000, 20 years ago. Please make sure that you go on any music provider and go check it out. And as a matter of fact, there was the deluxe Fantastic Volume 2.10, which was released on the 10th anniversary.
2.1.
Yeah, that was released on the 10th anniversary of Fantastic Volume Number 2, and now you can actually go and get this album available on vinyl, and I can only imagine what it sounds like on vinyl through a good system. So make sure you go check it out.
Boy.
Slum Village Fantastic Volume Number 2.
Don't play yourselves. Go listen to this album, man. Please go get this album. You really enjoy it.
Yeah. And that is going to wrap up yet another edition of The Vault. Please make sure you check us out on our host, Podbean, vaultcmr.podbean.com. You can also download, stream, and subscribe to The Vault classic music reviews on any of our music platforms. You can go to any one of our social media pages and you can get to our link tree, which gets to all of the music platforms and all of our social media handles. You can get us on Twitter at Vault Classic. You can get us on Instagram at Vault CMR Podcast, and on YouTube and Facebook you can reach us by searching The Vault Classic Music Reviews. Go ahead, like, follow, subscribe, any one of those things. We like to interact with everybody. here on social media. We do it here all for you. And of course, I got to give a special shout out to my crew, guys. It's great to have y'all back again, man. Hopefully we can keep this thing going. Hope everybody out there is safe. I'm going to, of course, go around and just a reminder that everybody to listen to Raw Sex Podcast. It is weekly, released a new episode. You can get him at Raw Sex Podcast on Instagram and at Raw Sex Podcast. Is it 1 on Twitter, Damo?
Yeah, it's 1.
Yeah, so at Raw Sex Podcast 1 on Twitter. Make sure you're checking that out. We're doing this thing weekly, still keeping this thing going. So thanks, of course, to my boy DT Dave, J.O., and Damo for joining me once again. The crew's back, y'all. We appreciate all the support. And if you have a friend, tell a friend, and make sure that friend tells a friend. Always remember to keep your headphones on and your music loud, but not too loud. And as we close, we like to remind everyone to dream big, because dreams are the basis for creation. Always create, motivate, and elevate, because you were never destined or created to stay stationary in this life. And on that note, we say peace.
Thank you for listening and coming into The Vault. Please subscribe and follow us on Facebook at IV Creative and Instagram at IVECRE8.